Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello, any and everyone. Linen Otter's back. Linen Otter's back. Alright. We're here to do another episode of One Last Night. Last time we met, Xavier. And we're gonna continue to meet Xavier. Alright, a little bit of water. Trying something a little bit new, so this episode's going to be a little bit shorter, but let's get right to it. Yeah, yes, my parents were unique in their beliefs, let's say. We had a bunker, and as if that were a normal thing. Oh wait, oops, I already did this. I was down there when everything above ground happened. I tried to get out, but the hatch mechanism had been damaged. So, I was stuck down there alone for, based on what I think you said earlier, nearly a year. A year? A full year, stuck alone with no view of the outside world? I understand now why he didn't want to talk about it. That would have been its own kind of hell. How did he manage to stay sane so long? I hadn't the slightest clue. It also explained why he has so little knowledge of everything going on out here. I had so many questions I wanted to ask, but I should get him to trust me more before I try to pry deeper. Still, there was something I had to know. How did you get out? A sad smile was on his face, something that made me feel guilty comparing it to what I'd seen from him earlier. And while what he'd shown earlier was genuine, it was clear now there was a lot more going on under the surface. As it turns out, the foundation hadn't been as structurally stable as I thought. Water had worn away at one of the walls, causing it to break suddenly and the bunker to flood. I grabbed what I could and took one last breath before I swam to the surface. I'm not sure how long ago that was. Maybe 3 days? It's hard to keep track of time with whatever is going on with the sky. A silence settled over us at that. Me, taking in everything I'd just been told while Xavier relived the painful memories once again. Xavier was the first to break it. So, why'd you call me kid earlier? I tried to hold in a grin at that obvious subject change. It was clear he wanted to lighten the mood, and I was more than willing to play along. Well, because you're a kid. How am I a kid? Well, just looking at you in comparison to myself, it's clear I have years on you. You look to be as old as I am. How old are you then? 25. He looked at me, bewildered. 25? I'm 22. That's only a difference of 3 years. You're barely older and definitely not old enough to be calling me kid. I imitated a look of fake shock, bringing my hand to my chest. Good sir, I never... Now, come on, kid. Is that any way to be speaking to your elders? We stared at each other for a few moments before we both burst out laughing, the tension of the moment now broken, thanks to Xavier. It had been a while since I laughed like this, let alone gotten along this well with somebody so fast. I know, though, that could only last so long. She wants to just make me all sad again. As our laughter began to die down, I could see Xavier getting ready to ask me something else. Okay, so I answered some of your questions, but I still have plenty of my own. The world is so different now compared to before. I nodded at him, knowing where this was going. Don't have to tell me twice. I've lived through it. Fair is fair, though, and you deserve to know what's happening. So, what do you want to know? Given that he had next to no knowledge of this new age, I'm sure he had a multitude of questions. There were very few similarities that remained over the past year, with a lot of them having no proper explanation either. All I could do was try and answer his questions with what I had seen or heard. A small sense of dread crept up my spine, as if it knew that whatever the next question would be, I wouldn't like it. Well, how about when it all started? What was it like? That confirmed the sensation. He really had wasted no time diving immediately into the hard-hitting questions. I suppose there was something to be admired in that, though. The avoidance of unnecessary topics. I thought back to that day, giving an involuntary shudder at the memory. Are you sure you want to know that first? It's not exactly light-hearted stuff. If I didn't think I could handle it, I wouldn't have asked. I have a year to catch up on. I need to have some knowledge of everything. The determination in his voice told me I wasn't getting out of this, and it was only fair that I tell him something in return. A trauma for a trauma, I suppose. Oh boy. I closed my eyes as I allowed the waves of memories to wash over me. Oh boy. It was ordinary that day when it first started. Everyone was going about their usual morning habits. I was in my apartment, the clock having struck noon a while prior. I had changed clothes so I could make a trip to the store. I had planned on making an assortment of baked goods. What kind? I felt a smile on my face at the question. Cookies, tarts, an assortment of muffins, just a variety of delicacies. Marshall Sweet-Tooth was never satisfied, so I wanted to make sure I had enough to last. I was going over my list and double-checking I had everything. My reusable bags hanging from my arm. I was going over my list and double-checking I had everything. My reusable bags hanging from my arm. When it started. I'd never experienced an earthquake before, and neither had most people who live here, so I was confused. Of course, we read about them in school, but it was a surprise to feel one. The tremors were gentle at first, rattling the objects on the shelves of my living room. I held onto a table while I waited for it to pass. But it didn't. Instead, the tremors grew more violent. I made my way to the living room on unsteady feet, hoping to catch a glimpse of the chaos outside. And chaotic it was. I could see other buildings shaking as well, cracks appearing in the pavement on the street below. People everywhere were stunned, unsure of what to make of themselves as the earthquake worsened. Suddenly, fractures began to creep up the walls of a nearby building. Our infrastructure wasn't well equipped for a situation like this. A cloud of dust puffed out the sides as the floor collapsed onto itself, causing the top half to lean and crash into another skyscraper nearby. That's what finally broke people from their stupor. I could see the chaos breaking in the street below as people began to flee, those in their cars trying to avoid crashing as debris rained down from above. I couldn't let myself die here, though. So I forced my gaze away and began to gather a few things I knew the locations of. Running to my room, I took out my hiking pack from the closet, throwing in an extra outfit just in case. I grabbed my journals as well as a few mementos that were important to me. Lastly, I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and a pack of matches. I didn't know what was happening, and I wanted to be prepared for anything. I took a look at my home once more, something telling me this would likely be the last I saw of it. My gaze then settled on the window outside. A complex from across the street was now falling victim to the quakes as well, and it seemed to be leaning in our direction. Wasting no more time, I flung the door open, dashing to the stairs and throwing myself down them. Although living high up had given me the advantage of a view, the negative side of that being I had to descend so many flights of stairs in such a brief time period. I passed a few people who were also fleeing, holding what little belongings they could manage. I reached the bottom of the stairwell and held the door open, ushering the people out when I heard the impact from high above. The last person stumbled out the door, a young feline man around my age, and I grabbed them before they could fall, the two of us dashing across the lobby to get outside. The people ahead of us had already left, not bothering to wait around. With each moment that passed, the crashing grew louder as the building was collapsing. Holding my bag in front of us, I didn't bother trying for the door handle. Holding my bag in front of us, the door handle. Holding my bag in front of us, I didn't bother trying for the door handle, instead using the force of our combined weight to shatter the glass and send us onto the street. We rolled across the pavement just in time, a concussive blast of air sending us hurtling further and faster as the building finished its collapse. I was left coughing and stunned, my ears ringing from it all. It was disorienting, but I knew I couldn't stop. Hoping the man was alright and doing the same, I began to run. I wasn't sure where I was going, instead letting my body take me where it wanted to go. However, as I fled, there seemed to be some kind of energy in the air. It began to build before it went out in a pulse. Cars stopped running, lights flickered before going out completely. An airplane, high in the sky above, began hurtling towards the ground below. Not letting it stop me, I ran. I ran and I ran until I was heaving. My legs had long pushed past their limit. When I eventually collapsed from the exhaustion, I found myself on the outskirts of town near a forest I had often hiked through, a place I was familiar with. The sky had changed too, now decorated with the hues of twilight way too early. After a few minutes, I sat up, taking a look at the city from afar. If I hadn't lived there my whole life, I'm not sure I would have recognized what it had become. Now it was a smattering of broken buildings, light reflecting. Now it was a smattering of broken buildings, light reflecting off the shattered glass. I could only sit there and stare, not knowing how many lives had been lost or what my next steps would be. That's what it was like at the beginning. I opened my eyes again, seeing the familiarity of the inside of my tent and bringing a hand to my face, wiping a few tears that had fallen during the retelling. I looked over to Xavier, who wouldn't meet my gaze, likely ashamed of having me recap my trauma and comparing it to his own. I'm sorry. I didn't realize how rough it must have been for you. I never should have. I cut him off with a wave of my hand. It's fine, and I'm fine. Everyone has their own story to tell, and it's only fair I share mine with you after everything. Silence once again passed over us as I waited for the next question, allowing both of us a few minutes' respite. I guess it's true what they say. About what? People. Never judge a book by its cover, as the phrase goes. I don't think either of us could have expected what the other was going to say. I doubt we even expected them to be our reality. Sure, some believed in the eventual end of the world, but nobody could have known that we'd actually be living it. Xavier gave me a small nod, as if waiting for me to continue. And I agree with you. Everyone has their own life. It's impossible to tell what's truly going on beneath the surface at just a simple glance. We both just proved that fact to each other. The way things are, everyone has suffered their own trauma. How they let it affect them is what matters. Did they succumb to it, giving in to darker intentions? Or did they use it as a boost to grow stronger, to help them move forward and assist those around them? That's the kind of world we've always lived in, but the effects now are increased tenfold. After pondering my words for a few moments, Xavier spoke up. I choose to believe that no matter what, there's always a way to recover. Everyone has the ability to improve themselves for the better. It may be the harder route sometimes, but they'll get there one day, even if they need that extra push. Nobody's inherently good nor evil. It's the life they lead that shapes them. Sometimes you just have to help them reach a better mold. This world may be broken now, but maybe one day it can be fixed. I hope to be on the side that makes it all okay again. I stared at Xavier, sharing a soft smile with him. It was a lot more insightful than I had originally given him credit for, and it was nice to see his optimism shine through. Everyone could use a little more of that kind of outlook, myself included. And according to Alarms, buddy, I was gonna say Alarm Chan, but that's a Drake Wing Gaming's thing. It's really cute. You should go follow him if you can find him. Drake Wing Gaming. I think his most popular visual novel is Soul Creek. But anyway, that was it for this episode. It was gonna be a bit shorter. I think it ended up going a little bit longer than I even intended, actually, because I just didn't want to interrupt that retelling of what happened. But yeah, that was pretty sad. It's pretty crazy to think about how one would react to the literal seeming end of the world like that. It's pretty crazy. I've had a few earthquakes experience in my time too, but nothing earth shattering. So, oh boy, but glad we at least got to enlighten ourselves to that. I'm expecting to get another episode uploaded today, so I'm gonna go ahead and pause or quit this for now. Thanks you guys for enjoying or for watching. If you liked it, feel free to leave a like. If you want to stay updated, make sure you subscribe. I'm sure you guys know that already, but it really does help me out a lot. It's been really cool to see some slight growth here. So be sure to follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, or Twitch. And what's the other one? I think that's it. If you'd like. I do I post various content within them. Try to keep it relatively uniform, but you might see different things on some platforms that I don't post everywhere because of like video time limit restrictions or what have you. But anyway, hope you enjoy. Hopefully you have a good day, good night, good evening, whatever it is for you, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye. Take care.